Welcome to Honest Car Reviews. My name is Eric and this is the Mercedes AMG GLB 35 4MATIC. The GLB is quite unique, being a 7-seater. But here we have the 35 AMG model. So the question is, should the GLB receive the AMG treatment? Have AMG done enough to make this a proper AMG model? We'll start with the exterior because I'm not only testing the AMG version, but also this is the first time that I'm testing a GLB. So there's a lot to go through with this car. From the exterior point of view, you can clearly see that this is a bigger car. It looks much bigger than the GLA. And from the rear point of view, it does look quite similar to the GLS. And in terms of all-around size, it is quite similar to the GLC. So this is definitely a bigger car, but with the engine and underneath platform being very close or similar to the CLA 35 A-class platform. So it will be really interesting to see how all of this combines into the driving experience. Twin pipes, which is the 35, and a fake diffuser. And in the front you see the now standard in both the 35 and the 45 models Panoramicana vertical grille, lower AMG front bumper, and of course you can see plastic here. Apparently it doesn't need that much cooling. It's a 4-cylinder 2-liter turbocharged engine, and it produces 306 horsepower and 400 Newton meters of torque. This car weighs just under 1800 kilograms, and to put that into perspective, the A-class with the same power plant weighs over 200 kilograms less. But then again, it is definitely a larger car. AMG has not only fitted this car with the engine, the four-wheel drive system and the exterior details, they have also fiddled with the chassis. So you get AMG specific brakes, you get sporty Pirelli P0 tires, 235 all around. These rims are standard, being 19-inch. You can of course go for the more bigger 21-inch AMG black with the silver thing around it. But I think that this combo with the non-midnight package, which is Mercedes' way of darkening out all of the details, looks really nice. They have worked on the steering knuckles, some other components both in the front and rear, to make it handle more like an AMG product. When you look at the power and size, you have the Audi SQ2, the BMW X2 M something, and they produce around 300 horsepower, 400 Newton meters. This car costs from just over 50,000 euros, but in this spec is about 57,000 euros. We'll look into the rear compartment, and with the rear seats folded down, you can truly see how much space you actually get. Really, however, with Mercedes talking so much of this being a 7-seater, don't actually have 7 seats in this car for some reason. In the rear seats now, and it's pretty dark, so let's open up the optional panoramic sunroof. 2 parts, not that much lower thigh support. The bench is quite far down, enough knee space and a lot of foot space, more than I was expecting. And I think that has to do with this seating configuration is now in the standard 5-seat configuration, because not only can you change the angle of the bench by pulling this handle on the side, so pull it, you can sit like 90 degrees or even more, but you can also have it a fairly relaxed seating position. Much better than I was expecting. But underneath there's a metal handle that if you pull it, you can move the seats forward. And I think this is probably the seating position if you want to have the seats in the rear. And then it is fairly cramped. The old generation AMG steering wheel, which is much better than the new one, even though it looks a bit dated maybe, but I like the metal look of it. And the cruise control is always active, so just go up to speed, press set, and you're done. The feedback and the controls that you have here that controls the infotainment system is great, and I use this instead of basically never use this. It feels pretty unnecessary, to be honest. Either I use this or I just use my finger. A lot though is Mercedes A-Class, such as the air vents, the design of it, and the sides and so on. But it has had a GLB touch with the metal here and on the sides. But in general, you do sense that this is an A-Class when you sit in it. There's Comfort, Sport and Sport Plus. To change the suspension individually, you have this button. So if I go into perhaps Sport Plus, you can see that the suspension is in the hardest setting. But I can directly disengage the suspension by pressing this button. And it's a nice feature to just, yeah, I want some hard suspension, even though I'm in the Sport Plus setting. So I don't have to go into individual every time I want something more comfortable, even though I want the steering and the throttle response to be really quick. Sport Plus, hold the brakes, hold the throttle, release the brake. Whew. The shifts, they really feel. Get some slight pops, not pops, but oomphs from the exhaust. In some areas it feels like a fairly grown-up car, but in other areas it feels more like the A-Class that it's mainly based upon. The car averages on paper about 0.8 liters per 10 kilometer. Short distances and a bit more enthusiastic, it will be difficult to go under 1 liter per 10 kilometer. But then again, it is an AMG car. Even though it has 300 horsepower, it feels like to accelerate decently, it always wants to kick down a gear. The engine needs to work harder than in perhaps the A-Class, which is expected since you have a quite large weight difference. I find myself speaking a bit higher because there is not that much general directed wind noise, but it's just louder in here, especially with the summer tires. Pirelli P0 tires that provide a decent amount of grip. Sound system is one of the less better things about the GLB. I think it's the upgraded one, the Burmeister, and truth be told, doesn't deserve that name on it. The suspension handles the unevenness fairly well, but if you go into Sport, and especially Sport Plus, doesn't matter how fast you're going, the suspension is, for me, too hard. The lane assist here is like this. Didn't do anything there. Let's try one more time. Nothing happened. One more time. Yeah. It warns me and starts to apply the brake to veer me in. It's not one that tries to keep you within the lanes, only when you start to drift out a lot. Especially when driving over speed bumps, broken roads, there's heaps of sounds from the rear. The body, the rear axle doesn't feel solid and doesn't feel like a Mercedes should do. Let's put it into Sport Plus and press the suspension mode into Comfort and manual perhaps. And yeah, it's really easy to carry speed, but the feedback, yeah, I can feel it pulling wide, but the four-wheel drive system does a fine job at pulling you out of the corner. But the response from the front is very, very little. Initial turning is okay, but as soon as you start to build, you can just feel the car starting to run wide a bit, and you can feel the weight of the car. AMG has done a good job at massing the weight, but I feel that they haven't been able to handle the weight. But that's kind of to be expected. I mean, 200 kilograms extra is a lot of extra weight to add to the platform. Feels more grown up, feels like a AMG SUV, but sometimes you get that hint of being agile, especially when you drive at 6/10. But you start to get to the limit of the car fairly easy, and the limit is fairly readable as well. So you never feel uncomfortable driving the car, and that's really important. Easily accessible. The Mercedes AMG GLB 35 is a bit of an enigma. Definitely feels a lot of the times like a larger car, but in some ways, especially when you drive a bit quickly, it feels like a lighter car, which I like. But once in a while, you just get that feel of the weight being thrown at you. And it's evident that this power plant, the chassis and everything, is made to be in the A and CLA models. My biggest downgrade here is, I think, the build quality and the gearbox. I think that especially with the power, the way this gearbox pins down a bit and isn't that responsive, feels like a letdown. If you buy this because you like the AMG brand and you want to experience the AMG performance, I think this doesn't deliver the whole experience. Maybe go with the GLA or the A-Class, because if you want this car to behave like an AMG model, having the response, the agility and so on, this car deserves either a different platform or a more powerful power plant. That's my conclusion for the Mercedes AMG GLB 35. See you next time.